Campers, it's me, Ari Lehman, the first Jason Voorhees. From Friday the 13th, I'm here with AJ, and he's got the juiciest slice ready for you. It's dripping with blood. Jason never dies.
Greetings, salutations, and all that jazz. This time around, I'm up to some shenanigans that aren't my usual, as I espouse the joy, wonder, and amazement that goes hand in hand with a trip to Crypticon.
Wow, the big show.
You've been training for this your whole life!
Crypticon, yes, but in regard to me and this, that's maybe overselling it a little. I do plan to speak on encounters with a variety of outstanding celebrities.
I don't think this is such a good idea.
Well, I'm in a little too deep to stop now. I even put out a promo.
Yeah, might as well.
There you have it. With that rousing endorsement, I'll press on with what will certainly be a worthwhile journey through many of the celebrities who I met at Crypticon.
Lies! Oh, lies!
Okay, that remains to be seen. All I know, this project turned out a little more involved than I foresaw.
Like you're, hung up on something crazy.
But sound advice saw me through.
You see, it's all in the mind. You see yourself doing something and your body reacts and does it.
If anything about this trips your fancy, please like, subscribe, and share.
Your wish is my command. Oh, yes, yes.
Let's get on with it.
Bad news cruise.
Tina.
Lar Park Lincoln was the first celebrity we approached. She's maybe most known for her role as the emotionally frayed Tina Shepard in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood.
Because
It wasn't a hallucination.
yes, it was.
No!
A real class act. She listened to my blather good-naturedly and was so friendly. It was such a joy talking to her. I had the opportunity to express how impressed I am with her intense performance as Tina.
That's bullshit!
The young woman was emotionally frayed, full of regret from a tragedy in her past.
She killed her father. Look what she tried to do with me. No, I see no other choice but to get her into the hospital as soon as possible.
No.
And had to come to terms with her powers right as she needed to harness them to survive an encounter with Jason Voorhees, whom she inadvertently revivified. The character carries a lot of emotional weight, and she played her right on that edge the entire film. No easy feat. I said, I've seen House 2, the second story.
Great. I thought the electricity was supposed to be on, Jesse. Is there a phone in here?
And the contrast between her performances shows her wide range, and the effort that went into playing a young woman with the world on her shoulders.
Great.
I expressed that she was so right for the role of Tina. I was grateful the film's director, John Carl Buechler, fought for her because higher-ups were looking for something else.
What?
She was grateful for his persistence too, and recalled the different screen tests, during which her hair was dyed and her looks changed, until they had calibrated her appearance enough, the higher-ups came around, or were just buffaloed and duped. Either way, it worked out for the best. In the course of our interaction, her co-star Kevin Spirtas,
With my luck, you're probably going to turn out to be another delusion.
was broached, and I inquired about the purported on-set tensions between the two. She clarified that at the time they were in different places in their lives, and have since buried whatever hatchet there was, and become great friends. Makes sense, being as how she was a young wife and mother, and he was an openly gay actor in Hollywood when that wasn't so popular. I can see how they would have little in common beyond playing love interests. Since it was literally discussed among friends if the two still bear dislike for each other, learning otherwise was a nice little insight.
Thanks.
Here.
Thanks. You've been a great help.
Laura is such a terrific lady. I could have bored her much longer, but if nothing else, I try to be respectful to the celebrity guests and other attendees. Chatting her up was sure a lovely way to kick off the day.
true, Tina.
Next, we met the legendary Terry Kiser. The man is 85 years old, and you would think he's 30 years younger. What a cool guy, too. Like that kind of chill, dignified kind of coolness. I brought up his eminently hilarious, slimy tabloid reporter character from Night Court, Craven.
See, I really have to go because my car's double parked in a handicap zone.
I could arrange it so you could park there legally.
And how much I admired his comic ability and commitment. Not a minute later, another fan walked up and jokingly bemoaned that there was no 8x10s of Craven, since he's perhaps best known for playing the titular dead body in Weekend at Bernie's.
Why can't you be a lazy shit like I am? Somebody talk to the captain!
Of course I had to express my admiration for that enduring comedy classic. I commented that it was amazing how many laughs he could get as a corpse, and he has to be one of the funniest cadavers ever. This inspired him to tell us about how there was some worry at first about if it would be funny. The first day of filming, he played it straight, and as real as possible. And when they looked at the dailies, Bernie looked dead, and not fun dead. And there was real worry the film wouldn't work. He said that night he worked on it in the mirror, and developed Bernie's iconic slightly smarmy, mildly grinning expression.
There it is, stop!
Okay. Oh, God.
The next day, when he performed it, he could hear some snickers in the background, and when they watched it back, everyone was chuckling uproariously, so they knew it would work.
Swim with the fishes, you zombie bastard!
At that point, I said, I've had a question I've wanted to ask for 20 years. Did you get a kick out of when Weekend at Bernie's was referenced on Friends?
Actual favorite movie is...
Weekend at Bernie's.
Correct.
He said he's never seen it, but did hear about it. I pointed out that it shows how deep the film infiltrated the pop culture zeitgeist, and he seemed amused that that would make me believe he'll live on in the pop culture firmament forever. Next, we discussed his role opposite Lar Park Lincoln in Friday the 13th Part 7, The New Blood, as Tina's psychiatrist, Dr. Cruz.
Hi.
I told him about my series Extraordinary Exits and how I will eventually cover Dr. Cruz, and would be going against the grain and playing a little devil's advocate, since I feel that even though the character's a bit of a jerk...
And you're lying to me!
Until he sacrifices Tina's mom for like 2 more minutes of life.
What are you doing? Oh my gosh!
He's not as much of a villain as most feel. I said, he's handling an atomic bomb with emotions.
Look what you're doing to him!
I can understand why he wants to be keeping tabs on her. He said, I like that. It was a very awesome encounter with a man who has cemented himself as a pop culture icon.
Paper has authorized me to offer you a generous sum of money for the exclusive serialization rights to your life story. And I don't usually pay for it.
Who the hell's the Reaper?
Don't worry, the contrivance they call the Reaper will be discussed. Next up was the affable and strikingly handsome Kevin Spirtas, who besides playing Nick,
I saw it.
Tina's hunky love interest,
It's a big pink elephant.
also had a memorable turn in 2 subspecies flicks as Mel.
I really don't think we should go in there.
But I kinda want to. The subspecies flicks are a lot of gooey fun.
Please, Miss Morgan, don't. We can get you out of here.
Drink with you. Forget your evermore.
No.
Sadly, I failed to ask if he enjoyed the location shooting in Romania. As one of the 3 or 4 fans of The Hills Have Eyes Part 2,
I ain't the only crazy out here. Yeah, you're right. Because you just picked a fight with a whole busload of them.
Wes Craven's 4-pay dud, I was too intent on expressing what little admiration that film deserves, which goes mostly to Kevin himself. A motorcycle racer with a blind girlfriend.
What is this?
I was gonna scare you since you always feel my face first.
Didn't work.
No?
Roy was his very first film role. I expressed how even though that wasn't a great film, what some would even call
Bad. Bad for sure.
it has some good elements, and he was one of them, and how it was cool he got to tussle with Michael Berryman's Pluto. I pointed out how the whole cast was good and so was the setting, so had Wes sought organic solutions to progressing the story, rather than relying on a glaring and absurd retcon to introduce the Reaper character.
Raven don't get fooled like Papa Jupe! Oh
A better product could have emerged. A stand-up guy, Kevin pointed out Wes was in the thick of getting A Nightmare on Elm Street made, so it's understandable his creative energies were directed elsewhere, which is quite an honest and diplomatic view of all that.
I like it. I like it.
Then he alluded to the fact that he sort of knew what he was in for since even the dog has a flashback. I agreed that was probably a clue from Wes that the film should be viewed as intentionally tongue-in-cheek. Maybe commentary on how unneeded sequels quickly ditch continuity and verisimilitude in favor of pushing out product.
Nothing like having an ace in the hole, right?
I said it was so cool to meet him because I've always wanted to discuss how he has the line that steals the show. Quizzical, he was like, "What line is that?" I said, "You yell,
'The Reaper sucks!'"
And that made Roy the mouthpiece of the audience, who, because of the Reaper's painfully inorganic origins, were feeling that very sentiment. He was like, "Wow, I need to watch the film again, I forgot that was the take they used." Then he thought about it and explained how he had done several variations, and that line might have come from a series of ad-libs, because he didn't recall seeing it in the script. I was having trouble picking an 8x10, and he offered me a deal to get the two I was quibbling over.
Hey, I'm always ready.
How about for that?
Kevin was a very gracious man, and it was a lot of fun talking to him.
Let's get out of here.
From there we next approached VC Dupree.
School is out. Come on. Okay?
A man whose wonderful performance I spent a whole week examining because he played Julius in Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, the subject of a previous episode of Extraordinary Exits.
Fridge, what the fuck is this?
To which he wanted the link, so that was awesome. I said in the comments he could disagree with all my assertions and set me straight. Seeing him in person, it's hard to believe how long ago that film was made, because he looks great, which was kind of a mantra throughout the day. I was so excited to meet him. I've always enjoyed his performance.
So what, we just gonna stand here? Let's go. Julius! Calm down, will you?
And I consider the sequence that leads up to it
Take your best shot. Motherfucker.
and his kill some of the best of what the film has to offer. I articulated my belief that he clearly studied boxing and understood the ins and outs. Then it was so cool because he confirmed and went into how it had been up to him to devise Julius's backstory to better flesh out the character. He said Julius's family owned a boxing gym, and he was the youngest brother, and had the most potential out of his brothers. What a nice tidbit that explains why Julius was so talented, a dynamo with dynamite in his fists. The character Julius bested was killed in a way involving darts, ultimately deemed too much by the censors, requiring a reshoot.
Julius?
VC pointed out how the actor who he faced off against wasn't available, so another gentleman with a much thinner physique was used. He was like, that other dude was a big guy, and yeah, it's pretty obvious in direct comparison. don't know what possessed me to even bring it up, because it's a blink and you'll miss him appearance.
Excuse me, does that music have to be so loud? Thank you.
Cripes, the sweater he's wearing gets way more screen time. But I asked about his role in Dutch, an underrated comedy written by John Hughes, and I'm glad I did because he actually lit up. To my surprise, he said that entailed 6 days shooting and was an actual part. Then recalled, my friends were like, "This is historic. You're the first black person in a John Hughes movie. Only one problem. The role was all but eliminated from the finished product."
I don't have time for these shenanigans.
In retrospect, I should have maybe asked for a rundown of the role, or at least if there's a possibility, the deleted scenes might be released someday.
Let's return from La La Land, because that ain't gonna happen.
From an audio commentary, I knew that VC was actually at some point still in possession of his head from Jason Takes Manhattan, this nifty prop. As it turned out, he actually had two. The effects artist was going to throw them out.
Blasphemer!
So he swooped in for the save, and for several years held on to these unique keepsakes. In the end, they were collecting dust and slowly deteriorating, so he has since parted with them, getting the heads into the hands of collectors. Loquacious and happy to pull from his well of memories, VC couldn't have been friendlier. On the topic of some of the best of what Jason Takes Manhattan has to offer, at the next table was a vision in the form of the pulchritudinous Jensen Dagget.
Hi.
By her entry in the Friday the 13th series, the final girl's virtue had to be glaringly intact, virginity a given, indicated by a demure chaste and unassuming air, and kind-hearted Rennie exemplified those traits. In person, Jensen embodies a full self-actualized woman, comfortable in her own skin, and not afraid to show just enough to make it clear she's not that innocent schoolgirl, kicking child Jason away from her toes. I would say that how she presents herself is a means to diffuse any assumption that how she played Rennie in any way represents her true self.
Please don't be upset with me.
Pleasant beyond belief, she kindly humored my nonsense when I pontificated about her
dedication to Project Elf,
the long-awaited follow-up to the Elf TV series. I explained that I was one of the, I presume, millions of children who were traumatized by the series' cliffhanger finale that found Elf captured by the alien task force.
Aliens don't have human rights, Major. That's why they're aliens.
They're aliens because we alienate them.
And I appreciated her portrayal of Dr. Melissa Hill, one of the characters working on Elf's behalf.
They rescheduled Alf's pedicure for a medical exam. I'd say a lethal one.
All of this might have been a surprise to her, because she was like, "It's been a long time since I watched that one," and I probably looked like a goof, because I retorted, "In preparation, I watched it yesterday." It really is a cute little film.
What if Rick went out and got you something to eat? Would that make you happy?
You can't buy me with food. Unless it's fried chicken.
It's probably a good thing I contain a heaping helping of humility, especially for the whole next part.
You admit it! Oh.
I explained how because Jason Takes Manhattan was the first traditional slasher film I was able to watch all the way from beginning to end. Rennie was my first final girl.
You give me the leg, and you're not gonna give me now.
I feel like she gets that a lot, because she said that it seems like the film was conducive to easing a younger audience into horror. I pointed out that even though the film has a slickness that lent to it being endurable to a kid, dipping his toes in horror on late-night cable TV, it still has one of the biggest horror startles of my young life. You can imagine how pleased I was that Jensen offered an 8x10 of that scene. She even pointed out that Tim Mirkovich offered the reverse image, as if I wasn't already excited enough to meet young Jason. With time fleeting, I complimented the commentary she participated in with Scott Reeves and Kane Hodder, explaining how her good sense of humor about the film and her involvement makes it a very charming listening experience. I asked if her sons have seen the films, something she mentioned as an eventuality, and she said only one of them has ever been interested. Perspectives. I suppose when it's your mom in the movie, it might not be all that impressive, even if she got to do something like this. The more I recall, I realize I was a little transfixed by Jensen, because she looked great and was wearing a dazzling top, which is an awkward segue into mentioning that, all these years later, her mother still wears the vest Rennie wore throughout the film. What utility?
Alf, get up! We have to get you off the base. You almost killed me. I was drowning.
Tim Mirkovich was a real treat. Child Jason in all his incarnations in Jason Takes Manhattan. This was his very first convention. An accomplished film editor. The apple doesn't fall far from the tree on that one. I thanked him for stepping away from his life to indulge us, and it was clear he enjoyed the role, even though it almost killed him. More on that in a moment. I said it felt special getting to meet him his inaugural time out, that I met Ari, first Jason Lehman, last year, and that was special in its own way, but I joked it was probably his 700th con appearance. Tim was an open and articulate gentleman, with a keen memory of his time playing Little Jason, which included being harnessed and held underwater to the very limits of his ability to hold his breath, especially in this scene. Basically, he was down in a tank, his harness in someone else's control, so the shot would go on until he was about to pass out. It's clear he feels it was worth the sacrifice, because when all was said and done, he had a lot of fun. Although reflecting a sentiment Kane Hodder has also expressed concerning working underwater for extended periods. He said it was quite exhausting. Young Jason vacillates between pitiful and terrifying, kind of the story of my life. A normal little boy. And freakishly deformed. The film seemingly unaware Jason was always deformed, something Dr. Wolfula makes a hilarious point about in his video, so I suggest you
go check it out! Go check it out!
Since Jason Takes Manhattan ends in a way I'll charitably call avant-garde, with zombie Jason evidently transformed into his child self by a toxic waste bath. Something a lot of fans found a bit ridiculous. I asked him if he had gotten any shit for it over the years. Tim explained that the thing of it was, there was supposed to be a shot that indicated Sean was seeing actual dead and defeated Jason, and only Rennie was seeing child Jason, which was supposed to finish out her arc of Little Jason hallucinations. So either that shot was mistakenly not used or lost, leading to decades of fans and curiosity seekers alike wondering what the hell that ending was all about. Tim showed us his Kane Hodder autograph, signed from Big Jason to Little Jason. He had the original makeup appliance he wore too. And it's still holding up all these years later. Before heading out, we got another chance to chat with him a few minutes, and I can confirm he's a film scholar with a vast knowledge. I think I could talk film with him all day. Bob Elmore might be retired from stunt work today, but he's a real veteran, with an arm's length of credits. But what really typified him was his work on the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. Even though Bill Johnson gets a lot of the glory for playing Leatherface, Bob was the one carrying the stunt load, and therefore did a lot of the heavy lifting the part required. I expressed how I had met Bill Johnson previously. And had since learned they split duties to bring Leatherface to life. I suppose since Gunnar Hansen had so famously played Leatherface entirely. Taking every risk, bump, and injury that came with the part, I hadn't considered that the second film, having a bigger budget, probably equated to more than one performer playing what was maybe even a more demanding part. Thus, I told Bob he was as, or more deserving of the accolade I extended to Bill. This being that although Gunnar Hansen was the perfect Leatherface for the first film, that he was the perfect guy for the second film. In the end, I guess it comes down to what he and Bill accomplished together, with their combined performance. Between them, they were the perfect performer to pull off the film's Leatherface. Truth be told, another rather famous stuntman, Tom Morga, known for playing Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers respectively, portrayed Leatherface in the opening bridge kill sequence. Bumps and bruises aside, Bob expressed appreciation for his career and all it afforded him, including a comfortable retirement, which warmed my heart to hear. Stuntmen take all the lumps the film industry has to give them, and they don't always come out on the other side of that feeling they got their just due, and they're often right. Although he did voice one regret, that of all the people he had met over the years, he never crossed paths with Gunnar Hansen before his passing in 2015. If for nothing else all the work involved, I feel like Gunnar would appreciate his effort. With other fans mounting up, I didn't have a ton of opportunity to chat with Bob, so I wasn't able to confirm beyond a doubt he was Leatherface in this infamous Kool-Aid Man style jump scare. But since busting through a wall clearly falls under the description of stunt work, I assume it was him, which means he was the one that appeared in Joe Dante's horror comedy classic, The Burbs. Yeah, he was across from Caroline Williams' table. Stretch herself, and that was a thoroughfare that clogs up quickly if you don't keep a move on.
I don't think it'd be legal to do that. FCC regulations, those things.
Seeing Caroline Williams in person, it struck me how for someone with such an enormous presence, she's tiny. Even though she's clearly gourmet, creme de la creme, the human equivalent of Wagyu beef, I feel this whole labored meat analogy I'm now in the thick of is appropriate because of her work in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. I've never been accused of having good taste.
How good are you?
Anyway, she sort of reminded me how in advertisements a fast food cheeseburger bursts on the screen, but in actuality turns out smaller than expected. Because even though on the screen she comes across so prominently, She was so petite and tiny in person. That's where the analogy ends, because she is far from a shrunken, overcooked fast food beef patty.
Oh, not again. Hang it up, lame-o. Go call your mother.
A woman who remains incredibly vivacious, especially when you consider she's somewhere in the age range of many of our parents. Besides looking great, she's truly a force of nature, practically a whirlwind.
I wish I was a man so I could just screw myself right to the floor.
As we were approaching, she was expediently lining up a whole family, including a baby stroller, to take a photo that included the whole brood. When I got my brief time with her, I quickly established she was the one that made it so I absolutely had to attend, because Stretch, and this is no slight on anyone else, is my all-time favorite final girl. Because she really was put through the meat grinder, no pun intended. Something I find very respectable, Caroline immediately gave props to the dearly departed Marilyn Burns. For originating the final girl as the character trope came to be known. I explained how I had recently covered Amanda from Hatchet 3.
How many more people have to die before this is over? I can't! You can!
In my series Extraordinary Exits, and she had glowing words for Adam Green's writing, and explained how he had specifically told her that Amanda was, in his mind, Stretch's spiritual ascendant, Stretch all grown up as it were.
That's right!
I said that I had spent a lot of time analyzing Amanda for the video, and she had truly given a tour de force performance. But that's typical of her. She always commits fully to her roles, and I appreciate how she throws herself into whatever she's playing, whether it's the vain Loretta in Leprechaun 3.
I've been saving my pennies, buddy boy, and one of these days I'm going to come waltzing in that door with everything packed into all the right places.
Clearly an Extraordinary Exits candidate. Or the intuitive Maddie Crimmins in Stepfather 2, Make Room for Daddy.
I knew it. I fucking knew it.
That one always made me sad. The character was only trying to help her stubbornly love-struck friend.
Carol, I don't think you know him well enough to marry him. Come on, Maddie. You don't even know if he's a real shrink. Maddie, it's crazy.
And wound up dead for her troubles. Her reputation besmirched. I wish I had time to ask how long they hung her for that one. It would have been nice to chat with her longer, but I was happy to see the fans came out in force to see her.
Let's talk about it! Okay, what, are you pissed off? What about me?
Because she's truly terrific. Rest assured, Caroline will be showing up in a lot of my future content.
Listen, this is not gonna work out. Oh shit, Kristen, not again!
Ken Sagoes is one of those guys that brims with electricity, and in every way lives up to the strength he projected when playing Kincaid in A Nightmare on Elm Street 3, The Dream Warriors,
The fuck you will!
and 4, The Dream Master.
I'm sorry, Kincaid.
Sorry? You are one spook chick.
He shook my hand and I told him I've always really liked Kincaid and looked up to him.
And so he took a jump. At least he wasn't sticking needles in his arm with a bunch of lowlives.
Which earned me a fist bump.
Yo, I thought I heard voices.
Kincaid, I could kiss you.
Understandably hot-tempered, he was committed to a sanitarium because a maniac was trying to kill him, so maybe just hot-blooded. He was brawny, tough, and smooth.
What's stopping you?
And had comebacks maybe as humorous as Freddy's.
Yeah, lifestyle of the rich and psychotic.
Screw you.
I said that I've always felt that Kincaid was denied a death more befitting the magnitude of the character, because of that entry being rushed.
That don't mean dick.
They were literally filming effect sequences before they signed a director. Freddy is resurrected in the Dream Junkyard. Kincaid attempts to deal with him, and then Freddy just kinda gets him. I've always felt that all three of the survivors from the previous film were undone too easily. Just to meet some perceived quota and fan expectation. I opined it was probably just that I liked Kincaid so much I really didn't want to see him go. I would have been happy for an autographed 8x10, but Ken turned me on to his comic book, Socrates. It turns out the man is also a talented writer. Yeah! Beyond encouraging you to get this book, I'm not going to spoil too much other than to say it concerns about the baddest-ass parrot you are ever likely to encounter. It's also being adapted into a short film, with Ken himself providing voice work, something that pleases me immensely.
And it's time to stop guessing and start messing. Yo, Freddy! Where you hiding at, you burnt-faced pussy?
So, why the haunted house?
Danny Hassel played the hunk, conveniently named Dan, in The Dream Master and The Dream Child, and now he could definitely play the DILF.
Summer, I want to fuck your dad.
Oh, really?
Really nice guy, too, although I realize I never told him my name. I like my autographs personalized, because I would never sell them. Part of why I like meeting these people is to convey how much I enjoyed their performance. And I told him how well he played the popular guy who perceived the worth of the quiet girl others dismiss.
Say that this is real, right? Why all of a sudden is this Freddy guy after you?
And it was cool that Dan survived into the 5th entry, The Dream Child.
So let's blow this box then!
I told him I always particularly appreciated the sequence in which Dan and Alice were trapped in the loop.
Come on, we have to hurry. I'm driving. Come on, we have to hurry. I'm driving.
Unaware Freddy had them running in circles while he eliminated their friend.
He's going after Debbie. I gotta stop him.
You know, I get the weirdest feeling we've done this before.
And he said that was easy to film because it didn't require any other setups. They were able to shoot it all very efficiently. This led into me telling him how much Dan's death scared the hell out of me as a kid. The whole mechanical infusion aspect freaked me out big time. This was the first time outside maybe Star Trek The Next Generation that I ever saw such imagery. And it got me on that it feels like there's something creeping under my skin sort of way.
This boy feels the need for speed.
Which is obviously completely appropriate. Also, the way the sequence ended was the perfect depiction of how Freddy's nightmares are supposed to work. A crazy, scary phantasm for the recipient that looks like a horrific accident or self-deletion to the world at large. I will definitely be making an episode of Extraordinary Exits about Dan at some point, because that one really gave me the heebie-jeebies. Not to mention it's convoluted and nonsensical like the worst kind of nightmares. He's expelled from his truck. He's suddenly taking off on a motorcycle. No rational explanation to any of it. Yet Dan's need, his drive, no pun intended, to reach Alice, forces him on, even after it becomes evident he's no longer operating in waking reality. Freddy speaking through him, he sort of got the line of the movie too.
Want to make babies?
Confirmed, he definitely spent a lot of time in the makeup chair to bring all that together. I said it was a sad death too, because Dan and Alice were truly in love.
Love you.
I love you.
And him dying opened a can of worms she had to deal with in regard to his parents.
But there is more at stake here than just your feelings.
You're not taking my baby.
The film navigating hot-button issues such as teen pregnancy and abortion with an aplomb that isn't often recognized. Overall, he was a really nice guy, and no less handsome today. At this point, I was seriously wondering if everybody had gotten a Fountain of Youth inoculation upon appearing at the event. Case in point.
There you go.
You think you've got what it takes?
Not going to lie, I kind of gushed over Lisa Wilcox.
What? No. What? No. What? No.
Shocking, I know. I just so love her character Alice, the titular Dream Master in Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
I can't sleep. Someone might die.
I was sort of taken all the way back to the feelings I had watching her when I was a kid. And she looks stunning in a black leather dress besides.
I see how you can make a weak man stupid.
Thank you. That's not what we're here for.
Fair enough. I expressed how it made me happy Alice not only got a through line, but got to survive the film series, and how it was awesome she got to remain true to the character. I told her how much I enjoyed the way she portrayed Alice's journey to emerge as such a strong heroine, after being a quiet wallflower, not interested in being seen, or even seeing herself.
What?
The mirror. You can't see yourself in it.
I don't want to.
To finding her strength. To bettering Freddy.
Evil will see itself. And itself!
To going off into the sunset with her baby.
Sweet dreams, Jacob Daniel.
Even as Freddy's specter looms nearby. I summed up by saying she'll always be the Dream Master to me. Cringy, I know. I couldn't help myself. I wish I were less overwhelmed with her presence, because this was maybe a wasted opportunity.
Don't you understand?
I feel like I did a lot of blither-blathering about Alice and Freddy in series fidelity, while I could have asked her about her powerful appearance on Star Trek The Next Generation, in the episode The Vengeance Factor.
That was a good one.
Lisa Wilcox also has an awesome YouTube channel. It's been a while since she last uploaded, but she has a library of content in which she visits the various locations from her Nightmare on Elm Street entries. Very cool stuff and well worth checking out. And if you ever meet her, be more graceful than me. It's not a high bar to cross.
Good, but Allison, you must have balance.
Some twisted sequel to that film by Polanski, shot in the Dakota in 1968.
Hello, baby.
I need to put myself on blast. A huge lapse on my part. I went in unaware that Andras Jones, besides appearing in a couple of flicks that are like comfort food to me, Sorority Babes and the Slimeball Bowl-orama.
Holy shit.
Oh, unholy shit.
And A Nightmare on Elm Street 4, The Dream Master.
So just cut it out, please.
Is an extremely talented musician. The man must be an incendiary, because his music is on fire. Yet he has the chill gravitas of a rock star, And when you hear him perform, you know why. Funny how that works. I went in thinking we would talk about his movies, only to learn he has this whole other more relevant facet to him. Before we got to talking about that, I explained how I've always appreciated his portrayal of Rick.
Here comes your boyfriend. Can he give you a good night's sleep?
We don't kiss and tell. How about you guys?
The character, besides being a martial artist, exemplified many admirable traits.
I'm talking to you. Are you awake or what?
Dad, don't start.
Start what?
Looking out for his little sister and encouraging her to toughen up for her own good.
You gotta learn to stand up for yourself. Fight back.
And even as her mental state declined, standing by his girlfriend.
Hey. You don't have to go if you don't want to. I'll take care of you.
The arc from vested skepticism.
Dan, I really don't know if it's a story. Look at us. We're dropping off like flies here.
To begrudging belief.
You ever take a look at our town's history? It's not exactly a safe place to be a teenager.
While still looking out for his sister.
Wasn't a dream, it was real!
She wasn't crazy, and neither are you.
To extending a warning only made partially in jest.
If I'm next, watch your back, man.
Rick was the picture of a young man living a waking nightmare.
What's wrong?
Kincaid and Joey died last night.
What?
Yeah.
Well before the actual nightmare that cost him his life. On the can, really. I brought up how it bothered me that even though the character was a martial artist, he swings for the fences brawler style when facing Invisible Freddy.
Needs no eyes.
And I'd seen in an extra feature he had the same quibble. I said this might be an indication of my pedantic nature, but I had given that way too much consideration, only to realize in the context of a dream, it's actually appropriate.
Come on out and fight me, you chicken!
I guess the nitpicking arises from the desire to see Rick get an ending more befitting of his journey. But as I already pointed out, the film was rushed, so what we got was more than good enough because of performances like Andras's.
When Dad's popping aspirin like popcorn, it's void all contact day.
He shared that making and performing music is his passion, and he was putting on a show that very night. Then explained that he had been encouraged to share his music with the Nightmare on Elm Street fans, because they're the ones, he was told, who like him. It was something he was evidently reluctant to do, because as he pointed out, a possible unfair expectation the fans might harbor, his music isn't like Dokken. I am so grateful he chose to promote his rocker side, because I dig his work immensely. I was looking over his 8x10s and he pointed out that a record had his picture too, which decided it. He had 2 albums available, and I realize now I should have gotten both. I said I have a wide spectrum of musical tastes, liking everything from Jim Croce to rap, and he said he falls right in the middle, and he was absolutely right.
This is great.
Components that drew me right in. His guitar work and vocals make for a rich and soulful blend. His songs have meaning too, beyond the conventional. Connecting in that way, all the best music I've listened to in my life has. I can't express how delighted I am his work spoke to me. Ingratiating yourself on an artist, currying favor as it were, isn't all that hard, because artists like to share their work, and showing interest goes a long way. What's even better is when that interest turns into genuine enchantment with the art in question. That he has the low-key deportment of a man too humble to consider such a thing in no way diminishes. There's a mesmerizing quality to Andras that instantly made me want to like his music. But even if I want to like something, if I don't, I don't. But in my humble opinion, his songs are earworms in the best possible sense. The kind of songs you want caught in your head. One of his tunes that should resonate with many, Record Store, speaks to what we should cling to culturally as we hurtle inescapably into a brave new world that will erase that which bears importance if we're not careful. Well, that's my interpretation. I mentioned my channel, and he immediately subscribed, which blew my mind. Like, how cool is that?
You know, maybe I could have stopped it if I'd have listened.
As soon as I got home, I subscribed to his channel, and ever since, I've been immersed in his incredibly rich, bold, at times quirky, brazen, nuanced, beautiful, and thought-provoking music. Not only that, but I went out and bought a record player. What can I say? I had to hear the vinyl. I got so distracted learning about his musical pursuits, I totally forgot to ask what it was like to work with Linnea Quigley in Sorority Babes in the Slimeball Bolorama. Her character was a bit feisty and spicy in that one.
You shouldn't do that either.
Who are you, my mother?
I'm curious about their working rapport. I also wanted to point out how between Sorority Babes and the Dream Master, he displayed terrific range, playing both the quintessential nerdy guy and eminently likable cool guy.
What else?
Dan was the handsome jock, but Rick was the brave martial artist, with alternative tastes and tons of loyalty. I love when actors display contrast like that, and Andras was terrific in both roles. Another thing Andras mentioned was that for this bit of business, he's been told he's the second most famous meatball behind Bill Murray. Since he's not a spiced wad of meat, the personification of a weak pitch, or a dim-witted person, despite the appropriateness of the status, to think of the man himself as a meatball would be the height of irony.
Rick, you little meatball. I love soul food.
I really wish I had capitalized more on the opportunity, asked if it was creepy working in a coffin, shelled out the cash for the other album, and maybe even for an 8x10 of Rick too. It would have been well worth whatever monetary expense, but c'est la vie. Maybe I can convince him to talk with me about Rick when I cover the character in an episode of Extraordinary Exits.
It might happen. Yeah, and monkeys might fly out of my butt.
No matter how you slice it, in every way.
I mean, that's one cool cat. Yeah, he's a cool cat.
Decode this situation. Otherwise, might as well kiss goodbye to our radio station. Recognize, escalate, decode this situation.
Well, gotta go.
Meeting Tony Moran, it was immediately evident he's the kind of guy who can handle himself and doesn't suffer fools. Of course, his was the face of Michael Myers, the one time in the entire original series that it was revealed. This few seconds and how they're acted give deep insight into an otherwise outwardly opaque character, whose inner traits are only revealed through his murderous actions. I told him I felt he was perfect because he had the right look, an attractive young man who could have been the high school jock, or the theater kid, or anyone else other than this vicious murderer, and how he played it so well, because in just a few bare seconds he revealed the confusion that overtakes Michael Myers at having his true identity, the mask, removed, and how important it is to get it back on, because without it, he's nothing. He said I was on the right track with my assessment, and that he and John Carpenter discussed it in great detail. I didn't quite have the temerity to ask if he gets shit, since he reaps all the glory for one scene, while Nick Cassel was otherwise the shape. I wouldn't want him to take it wrong, because I understand why they would cast a performer purely for a face reveal, while a stuntman, or in this case the director's friend who happened to be available, fulfilled the rest of the role.
Man needs to balance his own account.
Apparently others are so audacious, so discourteous, and so bad-mannered as to question the value of his contribution. He said somewhere like, well, that's only a few seconds. And I was like, yeah, the few seconds that make the film. What kind of dope approaches a guy like Tony Moran and pulls that BS? Someone who can't read people, because he's not a guy you disrespect. Over the years, throughout all the cons he's done, there's only one other celeb who showed him disrespect.
God help us!
And is the only one he doesn't like. I'm not at privilege to say who it is. A man's word is his only real currency. But they know why.
It's breakfast time!
When we came upon Michael Bailey Smith, a tall, young, and fetching long-haired brunette was at his table fangirling out. It was amusing to see, because it was likely akin to how I often appear talking to these folks. Of course, she was a ravishing beauty and I'm me, but I digress. Of course, Mr. Smith is these days most often connected to his portrayal of Pluto in the Hills Have Eyes remake. A character as innocent as he is brutal. But he worked extensively, even returning in The Hills Have Eyes 2 as the lead desert mutant, Papa Hades. A stark contrast from the childlike Pluto. Very open to talking, he told us about how he was advised not to study Michael Berryman's portrayal of Pluto from the original film, because his was to be entirely original, just one of many aspects that makes this one of the best remakes out of the glut we've gotten in the last 2 decades.
Yep, that stands up to scrutiny.
He even demonstrated how he played Pluto's innocence, immediately summoning the character and bringing to mind this exact instance. Really cool to see how much he embraced that role and still enjoys showing off his excellent performance. I really got a kick out of that. What's amazing, he explained how his very first role, the iconic Super Freddy,
Bastard maniac! Super Freddy!
came about purely as a fluke. A friend was going to an open casting call for A Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, and he tagged along with zero expectation of anything. They saw him, thought he was perfect for the role, and that's all she wrote. He spent the next 3 decades working steadily in film and television.
How come there's no white chocolate fountain?
Observe the lilt he adds that distinguishes that this is meant to be a comedic depiction of a white supremacist, differentiating him from those you might find on a show like Oz, or in a movie like American History X. I regret not praising his actual acting ability. When someone's primarily known as a stuntman performer, that can get lost in the shuffle.
Good man.
What a courteous man. He has since retired from performing and is very successful in the private sector, yet still was kind enough to come humor an oddball like me. He's also recently married, and his lovely bride was with him at his table. I meant to congratulate them on their nuptials, but was remiss, and I'll make up for it here. Congratulations.
And pray you never need to call us.
I'll pray I never need to call you.
We first encountered Jamison Newlander during a Lost Boys panel composed of him, makeup effects maestro V. Neal, and Chance Michael Corbett, the actor who played Laddie.
Holy shit! The attack of Eddie Munster!
V talked about campaigning for the makeup job. She had just worked with Joel Schumacher on his previous film, and he was thinking about hiring Steve Johnson, because he had done Fright Night. Although Steve did a fine job, she felt in Lost Boys the vampires should be more beautiful and less monstrous, and she felt Steve Johnson would have leaned into monstrous because that's his bread and butter, an aspect distinguishing perhaps the two best vampire films of the 80s. I think it worked out. Someone, of course, made mention of the greased-up saxophone guy. Tina Turner's longtime sax player, one Tim Capello, and V seemed pleased to tell us she was the one who performed the task of greasing him up. The man was a chiseled specimen. Easy to see why she might have considered that an easy part of the job. Someone asked if she had snagged any keepsakes from the set, and she said not really, but she would have liked to take a section of the vampire's lair for her backyard.
This was the hottest resort in Santa Carla about 85 years ago.
The part with the Jim Morrison image specifically. V also related that it was a $2 million set, and an interesting factoid, what haunted the place long after filming wrapped? Tens of thousands of neutered flies were released in the vampire's lair, and even though they barely registered on film, they remained in the studio for some time, showing up in swarms. I would guess this dialogue was included for the lack of visual.
Flies! We're on the right trail. Flies and neon dead go together like bullets and guns.
I wanted to ask a question during the panel, but I missed my shot, so I posed it directly to Jamison Newlander, Alan Frog of the Badass Frog Brothers.
I don't like horror comics.
Think of it more as a survival manual. Kill your brother, you'll feel better.
The question was, at what point did he and the other cast members start realizing they were in something that set a standard of cool? Due to making such a massive cultural impact, the look and feel of the film was emulated, and from personal experience, I know it shaped a lot of young minds and set style trends.
Pretty cool, huh?
Or a fashion victim.
He said it wasn't until cons came about and they got to interact with fans directly that they realized how much it had inspired people. I told him that to me the Frog Brothers were the epitome of cool, with the best lines.
We blew it, man. We lost it. Shut up. We unraveled in the face of the enemy.
It's not our fault. They pulled a mind scramble on us. They opened their eyes and talked.
Who I wished I could be. He said that was funny because they were wishing they could be playing vampires. All perspective, I guess.
He's a vampire, all right.
I mentioned that I was going to get an 8x10 of him with Corey Feldman, the other Frog brother, and hoped someday I would meet him too, but I was aware he was currently on tour. Then we chatted about Corey for a couple of minutes, just low-key, which was so interesting, because it was the perspective of a friend talking about the positive aspects of his buddy. Say what you will about Corey, and some of his choices, but he's a real person with real friends.
Garlic don't work, boys! Try holy water, death breath!
That's always been my favorite vampire demise in the whole film. We're all holding out hope for a Frog Brothers series.
How much you think we should charge him for this?
We may have also bonded a little over our appreciation for Jamie Gertz. Both of us agreeing hers is an ethereal beauty, her persona unassailable, and her glory everlasting.
She's one of them!
I don't know how, but I almost forgot to include this funny little story Jamison told us. The Lost Boys theme song, Cry Little Sister, was written and composed by Gerald McMahon, without ever reading a script, and many of the ideas expressed to him beyond the general theme of vampires didn't wind up in the finished product. That didn't stop the song from turning out to be perfect for the film, but also seemingly left room for interpretation. Jamison said over the years he cogitated on it, letting it simmer, and believed he determined the songwriter's intent. Then he ran into Gerald McMahon, and presented his hypothesis, and was soundly shut down. It was great because as he related all this, he was wearing a big smile, so it's clear he has an excellent sense of humor about the situation. What a fantastic man.
First come, first staked. What was that? A little vampire humor?
I would have liked to have met V and Chance and gotten their autographs too, but after the panel I didn't see them again. Though on the way out of the panel, Chance did shake my hand, so there's that.
Get yourself a good sharp stake and drive it right through his heart.
Douglas Tait is a man of such immense stature, it's no wonder he's portrayed both Jason Voorhees and Michael Myers. Michael getting his ass kicked? Yeah, that's the kind of work the stuntman gets called in for. As well as straight up being the Jackling Sasquatch. Before meeting him, we were walking down a corridor lined with film posters, including that of the Friday the 13th fan film, Never Hike Alone 2. Behind me I heard someone say, I was the deputy in that. And I was like, who is this? Because Douglas Tait played the deputy.
You working on something?
And I turned to see Douglas Tait, so could confirm his claim. It's weird how the ears don't necessarily make the connection, because I had heard him before, but it took my eyes to recognize him.
Good night, Sheriff.
I probably wouldn't have outright called someone out, but I would have maybe said something along the lines of, oh, I thought that was Douglas Tait. Anyway, boy was he a gentleman, never batting an eye as I inquired about him being the pinch hitter, called in when the ending of Freddy vs. Jason required reshoots. A movie with Jason Voorhees that ends too ambiguously? Who ever heard of such a thing? I wasn't aware the lake itself was man-made, which helped when the padding used to make him bulkier led to issues with floating, and bracing was required. Interestingly, Douglas has also taken a prominent role behind the camera, branching out into directing, with a dramatic but fun horror thriller under his belt, Angel Baby. I love to see it because he has talents well beyond his auspices as a performer, and in that arena he's fantastic, so that's saying something. The film is well worth viewing, and not just because it stars the vivacious Isabel Cueva. Speak of the devil.
This man was murdered here.
Maybe he deserved it.
Isabel Cueva is more angel than devil, but I couldn't help myself. The lady was absolutely enchanting, and she's terrific in her role as Val in Angel Baby.
Someone out there! Call the sheriff!
A creepy layered film that isn't quite what you might expect. A slow burn with a nifty twist. Isabel stoked my interest, selling the sizzle, and I can tell you, the steak lived up. Yeah, I really can't escape meat analogies.
Really sad, because he has to make one.
No.
Playing a woman recovering from a very painful personal tragedy, who ends up learning a life-changing secret.
You're not going to say anything?
Isabel delivers a strong and compelling performance. It's clear she has a ton of passion for the project. A couple of minutes chatting with her, and I was chomping at the bit to watch the film. I highly recommend you.
Oh, check it out! Go check it out.
It It's an eerie, spine-chilling caper, but not quite what you might expect, skillfully utilizing film grammar to misdirect expectations, to instead offer a more satisfying conclusion than you might initially expect.
You bought the Milner house?
Yeah. Why, is something wrong?
I could probably prattle on all day about our brief interaction, because like everyone I was blessed to meet, she was super gracious, not to mention smoking hot.
What?
Douglas Tait is a lucky man to have a wife like her, but then she's a lucky lady since he's one hell of a guy himself. But this video is getting long, and though I would have liked to talk to them more, they had an obligation to get to, and thus anything else I have to offer is anecdotal at best.
Bring in the fanbots!
Last but very much not least, the non-horror special guest, we met
Frau Farbissina, founder of the militant wing of the Salvation Army.
Herself, Mindy Sterling. What an incredibly delightful lady. Could not have been friendlier and humored everything I had to say. It probably helps that I consider her a comedic genius.
Yeah.
Able to upstage Mike Myers with merely an expression. It wouldn't be
lies
for me to say she often stole the show.
Yeah. Oh.
She expressed her appreciation for that part because it was her breakout role, and I retorted that I appreciate it too, because not only is she terrific in the series, whenever she shows up in anything, it brings a smile to my face. I went on a bit about how much I enjoy her work. And said I could just keep going, but I don't want to bore her. And she was like, go right ahead. So then I went into how a real indicator of comic mastery is the ability to milk a laugh out of a tragic moment.
Earl, Buddy's not coming tonight.
Buddy's mom had some really bad news.
And she had accomplished that with gusto.
Wasn't just a bitchy little Hollywood wannabe. He was a bitchy little Hollywood wannabe who needed hourly treatments.
In her appearance on My Name is Earl.
I put a Fonzie sticker on the IV bag today. I thought it would make it more fun.
Hey!
She laughed and was like,
I have some news.
I don't remember that. I'll have to watch it again. Funny, that one had a real impact on me, and for Mindy it was just one of many jobs. She was a bit of a card, and you can tell she has a stellar sense of humor.
Meant to.
Not to mention some of the best comic timing out there. At this point, the sun was setting and we were fairly exhausted. The day portion was wrapping up, the tables and vendors closing down for the night, and as much as we wanted to stay for Andras Jones' performance, we had a long drive back to Wisconsin, not realizing what an opportunity we were squandering.
Lighten up, no one died.
On the way out, I was able to thank Tim Mirkovich and share another chat. He's truly a film scholar, navigating his own course as he chooses editing gigs with an eye towards artistic integrity. I respect that so much. Oh, and I got to see VC one last time. I was reiterating how much I enjoyed his take on Julius when suddenly...
Lies! Oh, lies!
Mindy Sterling was happening by, and she may have deemed exuberant me a bit of a fawning kiss-ass.
After all, it's hard on the boy not having a father. You know.
If I am, it comes from a place of legitimate adoration. I want it to be known. My praise is entirely genuine and heartfelt. I have mad respect for everyone I meet, and for a variety of reasons. And I even have an anecdote from Crypticon 2023 to prove my point. I met Clint Howard, and this highly embarrassing footage sort of says it all.
It is such an honor to meet you, sir. This is going to be something I'll remember all my life because you're just tremendous to me. So great. You know what I remember from all my life is when I get a ticket. So I hope that's not good. No, not at all. No, it's like I remember exactly where I was when I got my ticket.
Sort of reminds me of a death spiral. After this bucket list encounter with Clint Howard, when I was back at my friend's table, other attendees approached and one said, "I remember you. I saw you being enamored by Clint Howard." So at this point, my reputation is well established and precedes me.
Call it overzealousness.
Oh, Lord.
When all was said and done, what are this year's tallies? Having met Lar Park Lincoln, Jensen Dagget, Caroline Williams, Lisa Wilcox, and Isabel Cueva, that's 5 final girls, or maybe more appropriately, final women. As for final guys, if they survived one entry, I'm counting them even if they were killed in a subsequent sequel. Kevin Spirtas, Ken Sagoes, Danny Cassel, and Jamison Newlander makes 4. How many of the alum of major tentpole franchises was I able to meet? 7 from Friday the 13th, 5 from A Nightmare on Elm Street, and 2 from Halloween. With only 1 overlap, solid stats.
Some folks have a strange idea of entertainment.
And how many horror movie heavies did I get to personally size up? Leatherface, Little Jason, Super Freddy, Michael Myers, and Jason Voorhees. As in Bob Elmore, Tim Mirkovich, Michael Bailey Smith, Tony Moran, and Douglas Tait. Makes 5. All in all, it was truly an amazing experience.
Well, I'm sincerely glad to hear that, for all our sakes.
In summation, everyone was ageless, auspicious, and awesome. I hope I ruffled no feathers with my prattle. Danica's just along for the ride, so no one's running interference. I assume at the very least I made a fool of myself, but at any rate I had a good time.
I apologize for nothing.
Even if I didn't always get as much time as I might have liked, every encounter was fun, enlightening, and worth every penny. What money I spent was reimbursed in experiences way more valuable than the cash. Of course, there are always a few regrets.
It got weird, didn't it?
Yeah.
I knew it.
Questions I forgot to ask, photo opportunities missed, and the big one this year, not remaining for Andras Jones' set. After listening to his music, I know it would have been well worth sticking around another couple of hours.
Come on out, fight me, you chicken shit!
We'll have to remedy that by getting to one of his shows in the future.
Well, yes.
And finally, Crypticon factored into Danica and my 15th wedding anniversary celebrations, so I want to give my lovely bride a shout out. I'm immeasurably blessed that she puts up with my quirks and eccentricities. It's crystal clear to me on our crystal anniversary. She's the perfect woman for me. Happy anniversary, my love. Well, I've about reached the end of the rope, so I won't leave you dangling. Thanks for humoring my ramblings. Please share any refutations, opinions, accusations, japes, or other ideas in the comments below. And please join me for whatever I'm up to next time. Bye now.
Bye, creepy man. Keep it creepy.
He's a weird guy. Goodbye. Good night.